like to welcome all of you tuning in to this message from Bishop Eton, from our little oratory here at the Redemptorist home in Liverpool. I'd like to use the opportunity to reach out, hopefully, to a wider audience than usual, and I'll explain why in a moment. But the first thing I want to do is just ask you all to pause for a moment and remember that precious moment at the Last Supper when Jesus, after a long conversation with the apostles, was preparing them for his death and, of course, for his resurrection, which they really hadn't understood or grasped at that stage. But he prayed for them. He prayed to the Father at the end of the conversation. And at the heart of the prayer was this: Father, may they all be one, as I am in you and you are in me, so that the world may believe it was you who sent me. That message is the message that I would like to focus on for myself and for you tonight as I look at the situation in our two parishes, Bishop Eton and St Mary's Woolton. And I'm hoping, as I said, that this message will reach out to everyone. I'm keen that it reach out not only to those who regularly tune in to my weekly message or who usually come to Mass, but to everyone associated with our two parishes, including and especially the parents of the children and the teachers in our primary schools. Now, many of you are aware of the rapidly changing nature of church communities, not only in this country, but in many parts of the developed world. However, there are probably many others who have little idea of quite the gravity of the unfolding situation. I'm thinking particularly of the many parents of children in our schools who choose not to get involved in the life of the parishes by coming to church or becoming involved in the various ministries and societies that bind us together. At the same time, you continue to make it clear that you desire to share your faith with your children. After all, you have them baptized, and you are keen that they receive their first communion. We have two primary schools, not exclusively Catholic, but the vast majority of the children are baptized Catholics. Every year I administer First Communion to over 130 children. So hopefully you all know me well enough to accept that I do not stand in judgment, and nor do I try to make people feel guilty. That's not the purpose of just mentioning this fact. I'm just concerned that there are those who really have little or no idea of what the situation really is, and this arises because of conversations that I've had particularly with our administrators and with some of our catechists. So, for example, I know that sometimes people have said, trying to make arrangements, whether it's for baptisms or around First Communion, and they're told, well, look, Father Tim can't do it that day or at that time. And sometimes people come back and say, well, isn't there another priest who can do it? Well, I just want you to know the exact situation here at Bishop Eton now in relation to our serving the two parishes of St Mary's and Bishop Eton itself, which I hope we'll be able to do successfully for a few more years. I'm actually on our provincial council, the three-man team that had to decide who was going to be appointed where for the next 4 years. We normally do a term, a 4-year term. In the old days, you never did more than 2 terms in any one place, and in fact the terms in those days were only 3 years. It's only more recently that we've had 4-year terms. In fact, when I first became parish priest here, and I've already done 3 terms, so I've now agreed, after we discussed the whole situation, to try and do another term of 4 years. But I just want to put you in the picture, because sometimes people look at the yearbook, for example, and they see that we've got lots of priests here in Bishop Eton. Well, just to remind you of the ages of the priests and who they are. They're wonderful characters, but they can't go on forever, and indeed, nor can I go on forever. However, let's just go through them. We've got Father Bev Ahern. Father Bev, wonderful man, 93. We're going to have Father Dickinson coming from Birmingham. Father Dickinson is 90. Then there's Father Jim Casey, 89, still able to celebrate public masses and preach little homilies, thanks be to God. Father Michael Hennessy at 88, likewise. Both of them still extraordinarily gifted and able, but remember what age they are. 87, Father Tom Malloy, he's now fully retired. And then at 86, Father Michael McGreevy, who's also retired. So you've got 6 priests there between 93 and 86. You then come down to Father Tim, myself, at 76. And then Father Andrew Burns, who's 11 months younger. We actually joined the Redemptorists on the same day in 1964. Andrew spent most of his life ministering in South Africa, but came back some years ago. And as many of you do know, but not all of you, I think, he's had a number of health problems and he's doing extraordinarily well. So he had lymphoma just before we had the COVID. He caught COVID and had pneumonia and was in hospital with that. He's also had a prostate operation and he's had a hernia operation. And more recently, his heart troubles have been rearing their ugly head again. He had 2 major bypasses in South Africa many years ago. But happily, the heart specialists here in Liverpool seem to be sorting him out. He's had a pacemaker inserted and he's back climbing the stairs and getting down to the park. So we're hoping and praying that he's going to be okay. And that's it. Father Morris is having to move to London to be the rector in the Clapham community, where we've got to try and build something up for the future in London. Brother Michael, who's been a tremendous support to the community and, of course, to Asylum Link, previously also working in the prisons, but also a great help in the community here. He also is moving on. He's going to Birmingham to try and help support a small community there. We are really stretched. So that's the situation. You've 2 priests effectively trying to run 2 of the largest parishes in Liverpool with the extra support of people like Father Hennessy and Father Casey. But as I say, I think sometimes people just really aren't aware of what the situation is. So I am asking you, first of all, to be really understanding. But more than that, we've got a day set aside now, which is Saturday, the 22nd of April. And I've been in touch with both our head teachers, wonderfully supportive, the teachers and the staff. We're going to open the schools between 10 and 12 on that morning. And I want it to be a kind of marketplace. I want you all to think, look, we've got to help the priests run these 2 parishes. You can't expect Father Tim and Father Andrew to be making all the running. People have just got to start taking responsibility and making sure that everything functions. Now, I don't want to go into huge detail. I want you just to turn up on that Saturday morning, even just for a short time, go around, see what's possible. Think of what gifts you might be able to share to build up these parishes and to keep them sustained and flourishing, as I hope they will be, as I'm sure they will be. We've loads of people volunteering and doing an awful lot of work, as well as those that we employ in the offices. Of course, we've got Hayley and Anne-Marie doing a wonderful job in the office here in Bishop Eton. We've got Anne O'Neill, and now we've got Janet joining her in the coming weeks. And the office scene there is also very efficient. But there's a huge amount of work. You think of the size of these 2 parishes, the number of requests we get, the number of calls that we get, plus just trying to look after the property. So let me give you a clue as to what I'm talking about. I'm looking for support in every area. To begin with, just think of all the things that go on in the church. We need sacristans, we need readers, we need people who can write bidding prayers, we need more flower arrangers, we need more servers, musicians, singers. We need people to help with the children's little church and all those areas. Think about it. Is there any way you have got the gifts to say, yeah, I could give some time to that? And then we look at the catechists, look at the teams who run the First Communion programme. Trish Brophy's done it for the last 12 years. We can't expect her to go on forever. I'm sure she's willing to go on for the time being. But again, more volunteers. Just do the little bit of training that would be needed. One area where I'm desperately wanting some more help, ministers for funerals. I've got one in each parish who are absolutely fantastic. Bernard Keane down the road, Deborah Poole. They meet the families. They help prepare the funeral services. And then I can go and make sure that I've got everything in place as well. But if I have to do all the running, it's just impossible. So is there anybody out there who could train as ministers for funerals? It would be a great help. We have our bereavement group, but again, there might be others, particularly those of you who have experienced bereavement and might be available to help others. We're going to start our new ministry, our shrine ministry. Now, that's a slightly separate entity, but again, there may be people who say, yeah, I'd like to join in that as well. We're going to have a meeting about that at 12 o'clock in the Fishermore Hall on that same day. So the school's open between 10 and 12, and then midday, anybody from either parish who wants to help with a shrine ministry. There's a great possibility that we could develop Bishop Eton again as a pilgrimage centre. It really was. From the middle of the 19th century, this shrine to Our Lady Perpetual Succour brought people from all over, not just Liverpool, but beyond. And we think there's a real possibility there that we could offer a service. And it'd be lay-led. John Elcock has got some great ideas. Come along. Rather as we did when we brought the Syrian family here, or the way the dementia program has developed down the road to support people living with dementia. So many people have got involved. Let's get involved in that too. The other societies that are already doing a great job, the SVP, Society of St. Vincent de Paul. Think of the Junior Justice and Peace Group. Again, let's get more people involved. Could we start a young people's parish group, young adults? Well, we're starting the Alpha this coming week with the support of Elizabeth Parsons, who of course is working for the diocese now. So that's going to be launched, and that often attracts young people. So be aware of that, a wonderful opportunity to think about your faith and to support one another in the faith. We need to look after our buildings. Again, we've got remarkable people who've been doing this for us in our finance committees and so on. But John Byrne here, he's coming up to 90 himself. He keeps an eye on these buildings. We've got the scaffolding up at the moment because we need the windows replacing at the top on the top floor and other windows repairing on the lower floors. But he can't go on forever. So are there architects, are there builders, are there surveyors out there who say, oh yeah, I could lend my skills to that, keep an eye on the buildings, both here and down the road. Again, we've got a good team at the moment working down the road, but we always need more help. Just think of the size of the properties. And down there, we've also got a huge cemetery. So I hope you get the message. I just want you to come along. Also, a little bit more support possibly in the house would be wonderful. If we could have the door covered as we used to from 10 in the morning to 6 in the evening with 2-hour slots, supporting the team in the office and so on. So if more of you could volunteer for that, and with Brother Michael particularly going, and Father Morris have been great at helping the older priests at the times when the care staff are not here. We've got different care coming in 4 times a day for some of them. That's been wonderful. But the little things like perhaps getting them a bit of supper in the evening. We've got Cheryl and the 2 Lynns working away in the morning, and of course our cook Christine, and they do a wonderful job. But in the evenings we don't have that, and Father Andrew and I can't be expected to always be on hand to make a cup of tea for Father Bev or so on. So again, if there was a little team that could come in at tea time and just check it out. Come along on those Saturday mornings, see what's on offer, and if you feel your gifts relate to that, well, why not sign up? So I hope you've got the message. I just believe that we can all help to build up these 2 communities, to keep them flourishing, to make sure that everything runs really well. And in the name of the Lord, this is our mission, to proclaim the resurrection of Jesus and to build up Christian communities that proclaim that, as it were, from the rooftops. So I just ask God's blessing on this venture. Ask him to bless you, your homes and your families, to fill you with the peace and joy of his loving presence, to ask the prayers of our Blessed Lady, to unite us all and strengthen us so that we will be a church that proclaims the message that Jesus is risen and that we have a message of hope and peace and joy for the world. May the Lord bless and protect you, your families, your homes, our schools and parishes, in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you for letting me get that off my chest, and I look forward to seeing the fruits of it all in the coming weeks.